and welcome back to Genesis Designs and Watercraft, and I'm here today with a quick inbox review for you of this beautiful double boxing set from ICM, this being the English Patient movie aircraft box set. So this is two kits in here, two 132nd aircraft. You've got the Tiger Moth, as you can see there, and this Stearman also. So this kit, I got this from Antics via Andy Hills at the Bristol branch, so thanks to him for that. And the price for this set hovers at around about £80 UK retail, which I will admit does sound like quite a lot, but you do get two full kits in here, and it is less, although not much less, but it is less than the price of the two kits separately. I'm not going to labour on the Tiger Moth aspect of this because I did review this kit, the Tiger Moth kit, previously on the channel. So have a look back through the reviews playlist, or I'll try and remember to put a link to that video in the description below for this one, as it has already been covered. There's no sense doing it again. So, as ever with ICM, the box lid isn't really the box lid, it's sort of like an artwork cover. The box itself is a big plain flip top job which doesn't fit really under the camera, and the first thing you see in there is the Tiger Moth, which I'll just move out of the way because we looked at that before. And then you've got the Stearman. So I've already took the noisy bags off. You do get the peel back sort of stuck down kind with ICM. And let's have a look at these parts. So sprue B then, obviously main airframe components there. So you've got your upper wing, both halves of which are full span. Tail feathers, control surfaces, only ailerons on the lower wing, just like the Tiger. Wheel halves and a sort of cockpit area. And obviously I'm losing my voice just because I've started filming. Cockpit area, if it's worthy of note, there you can see those raised rivets or fastenings all the way around that. Very nicely done. Beautifully crisp moulding, as always with ICM these days. Lovely fine panel lines and detail. Really nicely done. Take note of this part. I'll come back to that in a moment. We've also got both instrument panels here, and they're very simple as befits the type. Not many instruments. Oh no, those aren't instruments. They must be close-out panels. Let's look at the other one. So yeah, those are some sort of close-out panels. Or they might be for use with decals. Okay, so the next sprue is C. It's got the lower wings on it, and again you've got full span for the underside, but obviously the upper is in halves. Let me flip this over and bring you up close on some of this framework, because it is absolutely glorious. So nicely moulded. It is a little bit chunky. And that is a feature of ICM kits, or at least in these 32nd kits that I've seen. But it doesn't detract because it's so nicely done, it's so crisply done, that it just looks good. In my opinion anyway. There's your instrument panels then. It does have dial representation, which the other ones didn't, so the others are either close-out panels or they're for use of decals. And you've got various bits and pieces. Nice chunky Cobain struts there. Little controls and levers, and two different propellers. So we've got the sort of slim, fairly common type that we see on American aircraft at the time, and one with a bit more of a chunky boss with some bolt detail on it. Yeah, as usual with ICM, really crisp, nice moulding throughout. And note also with the struts, the nice big chunky positive locations at the bottom there, none of this tiny pin stuff. They took a leaf out of Matchbox's book with the strut attachment points there, I think. Now then, sprue A. Yeah, it's just two fuselage halves. Again, lovely fabric representation. There's no stupid massive rib tapes to cut yourself on. Just really nice. It's positive, it's obvious, but it's not overdone at all. But I love this, the way the undercarriage fairing is moulded in integrally with these fuselage halves. What a brilliant idea. It's a real flaw with models like this, and it's not the model's fault, because unlike the real thing, they're not made out of metal inside, they're just plastic. But on a lot of these older aircraft, the attachment points for things are really, really small. So if they're represented with fidelity in model form, they're also incredibly fragile. Doing things like this just takes that completely away. Also removes any need for tricky filling and sanding. As anyone who's ever built the Matchbox Norseman kits or the Twin Otter will know, these kind of things can be an absolute nightmare. And then on the inside we've got a bit of framework detail. And the last piece of non-clear is this, is it the engine area? Again, probably not the most finely detailed 30-second radial you're ever going to come across, but it's just so crisply done. Those engine fins will just take a wash and a dry brush like absolute champs and look fabulous for it. Beautiful stuff. Final sprue then, transparencies, and again modern ICM kits just smash it out the park with transparencies in my opinion. These are no different. Beautifully shiny and clear, as clear parts really should be, right? Just a couple of windscreens and a couple of light lenses. Standard ICM instructions also, A4 booklet with glossy covers, it's all in colour. You've got paint notations on the front, a little bit of a history about the aircraft. I don't know if the aircraft in the film are meant to represent something from a long time ago, or if they're just modern aircraft that they happen to use. I suspect the latter. Right. I start with the Tiger Moth, so I will just flick past that. Say we've already looked at that before. And here's the Stearman one, Boeing Model 75. Sprue layout diagrams first. And then you go straight into constructing that tubular cockpit framework area. I think despite the much more rugged appearance of the Stearman, it is essentially built in exactly the same way as the Tiger. It has a steel monocoque fuselage framework then with some wooden fabric stretched over the top, and the wings being made of wood. I could be wrong, I'm not an expert on Stearmans. So you put the fuselage halves together first, and then insert that finished rectangular cube of cockpit into the front like a little cassette. Very neat. And those are backings that I saw, they're not separate instrument panels for that combing area, which then pops on the top. You've got that canopy, the cowling area panels going on one by one, 3 separate ones, and then finally the sort of firewall come exhaust collector ring just finishes the front end off. The undercarriage itself, you've just got these legs, but they've got a very long sort of insertion tab, which then goes in to those integrally moulded fairings, as you can see there, and then the lower part of the fairing is those separate C13 and 14. All of that's going to set the angle of the undercarriage beautifully without any bother, and as I said, it should be fairly robust. Then you've got tail feathers going on, construction of the wings, all very, very standard stuff. Lower wing plugs into the bottom of the fuselage, completed fuselage. Now, dependent on a good fit, I would suggest that the fuselage, as you see it here, actually is complete when you do this, and painted and deckled and everything. Pop your wing on, also finished, painted and deckled, and then you go onto the top and then fit the struts to it. And again, you can see these large sturdy attachment points, which is really, really useful on this sort of a model. And finagle that into place on the top, and then finally we build up that engine to the front and fit the propeller. Now it doesn't tell you here which propeller you're supposed to use for this aircraft, so that would be a case of looking at some photos. And then at the end here we've got some rigging diagrams. You see the rigging wires are picked out in red, and they've done it in a very logical progression. So you've got the tail rigging and the centre section rigging in this picture, then you've got the downward pointing wires in this one and the upward pointing wires in this one. There's also a template for making masks for the windscreens. This is quite handy. If you want to use this rather than figuring it out yourself, you can just put a piece of Tamiya tape across the top of this and you'll be able to see the lines through it, cut around them using a steel rule, peel them off the paper and stick them on the window. So this being a kit dedicated to the English patient, the aircraft obviously represent the ones in the film. I don't believe I've watched the film, but I think I probably will now that I know it's got Tiger Moths and Stearmans in it. So the Tiger Moth is just a very simple all silver GAFFC with a big G on the fin, and the Stearman is all yellow with a red fin. It's got a black grid on the rudder, and this is GAFEA. The diagram here shows that slim propeller rather than the one with all the bolts. And there you have it. So the decal sheet itself is quite large because of the size of the codes involved, but again, standard ICM fare, and by that I mean good. ICM decals generally very, very, very good, and you can see if I tilt it and get it to shine, super thin carrier film and really, really beautifully printed. And we do have instruments, not many, as these aircraft did not have many instruments, but you do have them, so that's a nice touch. Don't anticipate any issues with the use of these. All my experience with ICM decals, certainly in the modern era anyway, has been positive. So there you have it. The ICM twin pack covering the aircraft from the English patient. Beautifully presented, lovely, lovely box art as well. As I say, this one came via Andy Hills from Antics Online, the Bristol branch, so thanks to him for that. I really like this set. I bought it on the basis that you can't have enough Tiger Moths, or you can't have too many anyway. So I do now have two. And Stearmans are just a great accompaniment to the Tiger Moth, really, isn't it? I also thought at the time of purchase that there would be plenty of aftermarket decal sheets out there to suit the Stearman and the Tiger Moth, because I don't have any great desire to do the aircraft pictured here. So when I went on Hannah's to have a look before filming this, I was quite shocked to find that actually there are not, or at least not on Hannah's, but I'll continue to look, and if anybody knows of any suitable decal sheets for these, and do let me know in the comments. But that aside, if you fancy either of these or maybe both, it does represent a little bit better value for money than buying the two kits separately, notwithstanding the decal issue. But if, like me, you already have another Tiger Moth kit, then you've got spare decals there anyway, should you want to do that. But yeah, I think at the price around about the £80 mark, possibly less in some places, it does represent better value. So it's worth a look if you're interested in these aircraft or this series of kits. So yeah, I do recommend it on that basis. So yes, again, thanks to Andy for the review for this kit. Thanks to ICM for another great release, actually. Good work. So with that said, it only remains for me to say, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.